AITA for faking my son's paternity because I chose the hotter brother? I need to start by admitting something bluntly. I was the one responsible. I spent 4 years with Felix, 4 years of meticulous organization, meal prep on Sundays, color-coded budgets, and conversations about municipal bond yields. He was 32 and worked as an urban planner for the city. He got genuinely excited talking about zoning regulations and infrastructure timelines. I am a graphic designer. My world is colors, creative chaos, and last-minute changes. His was spreadsheets and 10-year development plans. We lived together for 2 years in his condo, or rather our condo, even though he had bought it before we met and his name was on the deed. It was a nice place, spotless and perfectly organized. Felix had a system for everything. Groceries on Thursdays, the gym at 6 in the morning, date nights every other Saturday because, according to him, consistency strengthens relationships. He was not wrong. I simply began to feel suffocated by so much predictability. After 50-hour workweeks, he came home talking about a new transit corridor, his 401k contributions, and how if we kept saving at the same rate, we could retire comfortably at 55. I listened to him with traces of paint under my nails from some freelance job, wishing we could talk about anything that did not include actuarial tables. I convinced myself he was boring, that I was settling, that life had to be something more than perfectly matched Tupperware and automated bill payments. Then came Ethan, Felix's older brother, 35 years old, though his lifestyle did not reflect it. An aspiring music producer, which was a fancy way of saying he made tracks in his bedroom and occasionally got paid for it. A business venture involving a recording studio had failed, and he needed a place to stay for a few weeks. Felix did not hesitate. Family always came first. Ethan arrived with 2 duffel bags and a laptop covered in stickers of bands I did not recognize. Where Felix was structure, Ethan was impulse. Where one planned, the other improvised. The first week, I barely paid him any mind. The second week, I started to notice everything. He stayed up until 3 in the morning, working with headphones on, nodding his head to the rhythm of sounds only he could hear. He would wake up at noon, make elaborate breakfasts, and tell stories about record deals that were almost signed, underground gigs in Austin, and the 3 months he lived in his van following a band on tour. Felix was long gone by then, off to some city planning meeting. Ethan remembered my coffee order after hearing it just once. He asked me about my designs, looked through my portfolio, and pointed out which pieces felt different to him. He made me laugh. I could not remember the last time Felix had done that. I started to adjust my own schedule, waking up later, finding excuses to run into Ethan in the kitchen. Felix noticed nothing, or maybe he did, but he trusted me. He kept working endless hours on the transportation project and talked about our future as if it were already set in stone. 3 months after Ethan moved in, on a Friday, Felix fell asleep at 9 at night, exhausted from a 14-hour day. I found him on the couch, passed out in the middle of a sentence about right-of-way easements. In the kitchen, Ethan opened a bottle of wine. "Is he out cold?" he asked, pouring 2 glasses without waiting for an answer. We sat at the kitchen island. He talked to me about dreams, real ones, not safe ones. I confessed to him that I wanted to design album covers, work with musicians, and do something with soul instead of corporate branding guides. "So why don't you?" he asked. I talked about bills, stability, and adult responsibilities, repeating Felix's arguments almost word for word. That sounds like fear disguised as prudence. We talked for 2 hours about passion versus security, about living now versus planning to live someday. Felix was still asleep just a few feet away. That night something changed. The first time Ethan kissed me, Felix was asleep in the next room. I should have stopped him, I did not. I later told myself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness fueled by wine and frustration. But the next day, with Felix at work, we picked up where we had left off. It became a routine. Felix left at 7 in the morning. By 9, Ethan and I had already found our way to each other. Sometimes we just talked. Other times we did not. We never put a label on what we were doing. I justified it to myself in 1,000 ways. That Felix was emotionally absent, that he prioritized work, that everything was for later. We would travel later, we would have time later, we would start a family later. Ethan was the now. On a Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon, he texted me, "Let's go for a drive." We ended up on the coast, windows down, music blasting, avoiding any talk of the future because the future felt like a cage. Felix would come home exhausted, eat dinner, ask a few general questions, and fall asleep watching a documentary. I started to resent him for being responsible, for taking care of our financial security, for being the person he had always been, while I was becoming someone I did not recognize. 3 months after the affair began, I had already checked out of the relationship mentally. I was just waiting for the right moment to end it. Ethan and I fantasized about moving, maybe to a city with a better music scene like Nashville or Los Angeles. It felt like choosing life instead of slowly dying from routine. Then my period was late. I bought a test and took it in a gas station bathroom so Felix would not find the box in our trash. 2 clear, immediate lines. I did the math over and over. There was no doubt. It had to be Ethan's. I told him that night in his room, with the door closed and music playing softly to cover our voices. Are you sure? Completely. For a few seconds I saw something like excitement in his eyes. Then reality hit. We need to think this through. Think about what? I'm pregnant. I know, but the timing is complicated. The word complicated hung in the air. You don't want it? I want to be smart. I don't have a steady income. You're still living with my brother. He trailed off. We just have to think. I walked out of his room feeling a deep chill. This was not how it was supposed to happen. I did not sleep that night. Telling Felix the truth meant losing the condo, the stability, and maybe Ethan too. But Ethan had already shown his hesitation. Felix, on the other hand, planned everything. The decision made itself. I hated myself as I made it, but I told myself it was about survival. 2 days later, during breakfast, I took Felix's hand and told him. His face lit up with pure, unadulterated joy. Are you serious? We're having a baby. I nodded, with tears in my eyes that were not entirely fake. He hugged me so tightly and immediately started talking about converting the guest room into a nursery, about his company's parental leave policy, and taking on more consulting work to build our savings. A week later, Ethan moved out. I'll give you guys some space to start your family, he said, avoiding my gaze. Felix assembled the crib with his own hands, bought 17 books on pregnancy, came to every doctor's appointment, held me through the morning sickness, and worked longer hours without a single complaint because now we were building our future. Guilt was eating me alive. He scheduled the first ultrasound on a Tuesday and took the day off work. He talked about names and whether we should find out the baby's gender. On the drive there, my phone vibrated. It was Ethan. We have to cool this off. It's too much. I'm sorry. I was already trapped in my lie, and the pregnancy was barely starting to show. Ethan stopped answering my messages. When I called, it went to voicemail. He only came to 2 family dinners during my entire pregnancy, avoiding my eyes and leaving early with excuses about studio sessions that probably did not exist. Felix misinterpreted it. He's never been good with big changes. Once the baby's here, he'll come around. I wanted to confess everything so many times, but he would always do something that paralyzed me. Show me the mobile he bought for the crib, talk about teaching our son how to ride a bike, or fall asleep with his hand resting on my belly. For 7 months, I gave up trying to contact Ethan. His position was clear. I was carrying his secret alone. The delivery came 3 weeks early. 12 hours of labor. Felix never left my side. He cried when they placed our son in his arms. I cried too, but for entirely different reasons. Our son had Ethan's eyes, not Felix's warm brown, but a lighter shade, almost hazel with flecks of gold, the same eyes I had stared into on those stolen afternoons. He's perfect, Felix whispered, suspecting nothing. The first 3 months were a blur of sleepless nights and diapers, with Felix being the exemplary father I always knew he would be. He got up for the 2 in the morning feedings, researched sleep training methods, and baby-proofed the entire condo even though the baby was not even rolling over yet. Ethan never visited. He only sent a gift card with no note attached. I kept telling myself I could maintain the lie, that the resemblance would fade, that Felix would have no reason to doubt. Until one day, he came home from work with some documents from his company's health plan. He mentioned, completely casually while sorting through the mail, that they were offering extended genetic testing to flag potential predispositions. He explained it included screening for a wide range of hereditary conditions, allowing for early interventions for things like cancer markers, metabolic disorders, and heart conditions. He assured me it was a comprehensive study and was fully covered by their insurance. My stomach dropped. I told him it seemed excessive for a healthy baby. He said it was not an exaggeration but smart foresight. If everything came back clear, great, and if something showed up, we would be one step ahead. He insisted it was just a simple cheek swab and there was nothing to lose. I tried to find any argument. I mentioned that those tests could give false positives and cause unnecessary anxiety. He told me I was overthinking it, that it was a routine benefit, and that everyone in his department had done it with their kids. I could not push back any harder without raising suspicion. He scheduled the appointment for the following week. The test took less than 3 minutes. A nurse swabbed our son's cheek, labeled the sample and sent it off to the lab. Felix chatted with her about the technology with genuine interest. I just sat there, feeling my life slowly unraveling. They told us the results would be ready in 2 or 3 weeks. Those weeks were torture. I practiced confessions I never said out loud, wrote apology emails I never sent, and looked up flights to cities I would never move to. He worked late almost every night, racking up overtime on a new project. I watched him come home exhausted, kiss our son's forehead, and ask me how my day was, as if everything was perfectly fine, and to him it was. 18 days after the test, he came home early. It was 4 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. He never came home at that time. He walked in with his briefcase and a manila envelope in his hand. His expression was completely neutral, a look I had never seen on him before. I was on the couch with the baby sleeping in my arms. I said I was surprised to see him so soon. He slowly set down his briefcase and placed the envelope on the kitchen table. He said we needed to talk. His voice was completely devoid of emotion. In that moment, I knew with devastating certainty what was in that envelope. He slid the DNA results toward me. I did not need to read them. The conclusion was displayed right at the top. 0% probability of paternity. He did not yell or cry. He just looked at me as if I were a complete stranger and asked, "Since when?" I broke down a complete mess. The words tumbled out, as if explaining every detail could somehow soften the blow. I told him it started 4 months before I got pregnant, that I knew how it sounded, that it was not planned, that it just happened. I told him I had felt invisible, that he was always working. He cut me off with a single precise question. "Is it Ethan's?" I said yes. He was silent for a long time. He did not look at me or at the baby sleeping in the other room. He just stared at the table, as if he were solving an impossible math problem in his head. "When you told me you were pregnant, you already knew?" he stated, more than asked. I nodded. "Every doctor's appointment, every milestone, every conversation about our future you knew?" I tried to say something, but he asked me to be quiet. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and said he was going to a hotel. He told me not to contact him, that he needed to think. I begged him to stay, to let us talk it out. Then he looked directly at me. There was no anger or sadness in his eyes, only a profound emptiness. "You lied to me for 9 months, he said calmly. "You let me believe I was starting a family. You let me fall in love with a child who is not mine. And now you want to talk about solutions." He left without another word. The door closed softly behind him. That silence was worse than any scream. I called Ethan. He answered on the 4th ring. Felix had already called him. He told him that he knew the baby was his, and that I had lied. Ethan asked me how he found out. I explained that I had acted without thinking. His voice grew tense. He reminded me that Felix was his brother, that he needed time to process this. I told him we had a son. He said he knew, but that everything was a mess, that he could not deal with it right now. He asked for space and hung up. I waited in the condo for a week, convinced Felix would come back. He did not. Instead, a process server came to the door. A petition for legal separation. The documents were meticulous. He had already legally withdrawn the funds from our joint accounts. His lawyer had covered every base. There was a formal notice for me to vacate the property in 30 days, as the condo was solely in his name. He was not asking for custody. He claimed no parental rights and made no mention of child support. It was a clean, almost surgical removal of my presence from his life. I tried to call him, my number was blocked. I sent emails. His lawyer had set up an auto-reply stating that all communication must be channeled through legal avenues. Our mutual friends went silent. A few asked what was going on at first, but once they learned the truth they stopped writing. I saw them interacting with him on social media, supporting him. I had been erased. He never made what happened public. He just moved on as if I had never existed. Ethan came over only once, 3 weeks after everything collapsed. He held his son for maybe 10 minutes. He looked uncomfortable. He said he would help out financially when he could, that he was barely scraping by, and that the timing was terrible. He was gone in 20 minutes. On the 28th day, I received the official eviction notice. The lawyer had calculated every step with precision. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a rundown part of the city. Ethan helped me move, complaining about his back the entire time. After that, he just started staying over. Not because he wanted to, but because he felt he had to. I had nowhere else to go, and his son was there. What kind of man abandons his own child? The kind of man who resents every single second he has to stay. 6 months after Felix left, Ethan was living with me full-time. He did not move in out of love, but out of obligation, and that obligation curdled into daily resentment. I had traded a man who had chosen me for one who felt trapped with me. Living with Ethan was nothing like the affair we had. The affair was wine-deep late-night conversations and spontaneous road trips. Living together was past due rent notices, a baby crying at 3 in the morning, and arguments over who forgot to buy diapers. In less than 6 months, Ethan's music career deflated. The gigs stopped coming. The contacts he spoke of with such certainty vanished. He started doing food deliveries for an app between studio sessions that never resulted in any real income. I took any freelance design job I could get. Corporate logos, restaurant menus, soulless projects that I once despised and now desperately needed. We argued all the time. Your perfect ex would already have a college fund set up for him. He told me once during a fight about bills. Don't bring him into this. Why not? He's in every conversation. You think I don't notice you comparing us? Felix wouldn't have forgotten to pay the electric bill. Felix would have already fixed the leaky sink. Felix had his life in order. You could get a real job, I shot back. I have a job. I'm building something. Not everyone wants to be a corporate drone like your ex-boyfriend. But Felix was never a drone. He was disciplined. And now I understood the difference. Over time my friends stopped calling. The story of what I did got out. Some tried to stay neutral, but in the end they chose a side. The side of the man who was betrayed, not the woman who lied about paternity. I started checking Felix's social media. He had not blocked me. He had simply erased any mention of me, as if my existence had been redacted from his life story. After a year he posted, "Promotion to senior urban planner." The comments were flooded with congratulations. His mother left a heart emoji. She used to call me her future daughter-in-law. 18 months later he bought a house. He posted a picture with the keys. A nice suburban neighborhood, a yard of his own, the kind of place he always wanted. I was still in an apartment where the neighbor yelled through the walls and the light in the parking lot had been broken for months. 2 years after everything fell apart, I saw the pictures. Felix with another woman. They both looked happy. Genuinely happy. Not the tired, comfortable calm he had with me. They were on a mountain trail, the sunset behind them, his arm around her shoulders. The caption read, "Good people, good places." I stared at that picture for an hour. By then my son was 2 years old. He looked exactly like Ethan. The same eyes, the same undeniable bone structure. Sometimes I would catch Ethan looking at him with a mixture of bewilderment and resentment, as if he could not quite figure out how he had ended up here. The worst part is I could not get mad at him for it. I was the one who had caused all of this. One Tuesday afternoon, I ran into Felix's mother at the grocery store. She was picking out avocados in the produce section. I tried to turn my cart around, but she had already seen me. "Hello, Chloe," she said, her voice polite but distant. "Hello, Mrs. Thompson." She glanced at my cart, then at my son in the seat. She must have seen the resemblance to Ethan. She had to know. How are you? I asked, instantly regretting the empty question. We're well. Felix is doing very well. He got another promotion last month. We're very proud. She paused. You take care. She walked away before I could even reply. I finished my shopping on autopilot. Back at my apartment, I put the groceries away. My son napped while I sat on the couch staring into space. Everything I had lost. Why? For passion? For excitement? I had a man who was building a life for us. He was building it, and I burned it to the ground because I confused stability with boredom. Ethan came home at 7, frustrated from another audition that went nowhere. He threw his bag on the floor. Don't even ask, he said. What's for dinner? I did not cry anymore, I just felt empty. I don't know. Of course you don't. He went into the bedroom and closed the door. I used to think Felix was boring because of his discipline. Now I live in chaos and try to call it freedom. The man I betrayed is thriving. The man I chose can barely look at me without resentment. And I have no one to blame but myself. It has been 3 years since those DNA results, 3 years since Felix walked out of that condo without looking back. I am writing this from the same apartment. Ethan is at another networking event that will lead to nothing. Our son is asleep in the walk-in closet we converted into a tiny room because we cannot afford anything bigger. I started therapy 8 months ago. I could not really afford it, but I needed it more than food. In my second session, my therapist asked me what I had learned. That I destroyed my own life, I answered. That's taking responsibility, she said. But what did you really learn? It took me 6 more sessions to be able to answer. I learned that Felix never needed to get revenge. He did not expose me publicly, he did not turn our friends against me, he did not play dirty. He simply removed me from his life with the same precision he did everything else. That was the real punishment. Letting me live with the consequences of what I did. He protected himself completely. Separated finances, flawless legal documents, firm emotional boundaries. Then he rebuilt his life better than it was before. I used to think his planning was boring. Now I understand it was strength. Sometimes, Ethan rolls over in bed and says things like, we could have had something real if the timing had been different. As if the timing was the problem. As if we were not the problem. Our affair was intense because it was stolen, because it had no weight, no consequences, no responsibilities. Living together destroyed whatever we thought we had, because reality is not conversations over wine and stolen moments. Reality is paying bills, meeting obligations, and showing up even when it is hard. Felix showed up. Every single day of our relationship he showed up. I confused his consistency with predictability, his discipline with rigidity, and his organization with a lack of passion. I was so focused on what I thought I was missing that I failed to see everything I had. Last week I saw his engagement announcement. Her name is Sarah. She is beautiful, an environmental scientist. The photos were taken in a national park, both of them smiling like they are exactly where they are meant to be. The ring is simple, elegant, and classic. He looks so happy. The comments are full of people congratulating him, saying he deserves all the happiness in the world. No one said that when he was with me. Or maybe they did and I just was not listening. I zoomed in on his face looking for the man I knew. He is there, but he looks different, lighter, as if a heavy weight has been lifted from his shoulders. That weight was me. I do not hate Ethan. It would be easier if I did. I just see him clearly now. He is not a villain. He is just a man who never grew up, who confuses instability with artistic freedom, and who will always be comparing himself to his brother because he knows deep down that Felix achieved everything he never could. My son deserves better than 2 parents who resent the circumstances of his existence. I am trying to be better for him. Therapy helps and owning my mistakes helps. But I cannot undo the damage. Felix will marry that woman, and they will have children they planned for and celebrated. He will be the steady, unwavering father he almost was for my son, only this time, he will be doing it with a partner who values what she has. I had it all. I had someone who would have done anything for me, and I traded him for someone who can barely offer me anything. Not even a real version of himself. People ask if I regret it. Of course I regret it. But regret does not change anything. It just sits with you, a constant reminder of every choice you can never take back. Felix never had to destroy me. I destroyed myself on the day I made the wrong choice. He just had the strength to walk away and leave me with the rubble. That is not revenge. It is self-respect. And I will spend the rest of my life knowing that I had someone who would have built a world for me, and I burned it down for a man who could not even build a foundation for himself. Felix won by losing me. He freed himself from someone who did not deserve him. I lost by getting exactly what I thought I wanted. Comment. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch today's video. I really wanted to share this piece because it highlights the quiet strength of walking away from what no longer serves us. True self-respect often means choosing peace over proving a point or seeking revenge. We can learn a lot from setting firm boundaries to protect our mental health and well-being. It takes profound courage to rebuild your life from scratch instead of staying in a toxic environment. Accountability is a difficult mirror to look into, but taking ownership of our mistakes is the only real way to grow. We should try to appreciate the steady, dependable people in our lives before they are gone. Healing is not about punishing those who hurt us, but rather about freeing ourselves to find genuine happiness elsewhere. I hope you always remember your worth and have the bravery to walk toward your peace. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments and take care of yourselves out there. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.